we're both actually founder members of the club, and how we got into it was we were attending a water polo match. We both played water polo, and the other team never turned up. So one of the polo players said, "I've got some surfboards, let's go down to Boscombe Pier." And so we all came down here and had our first try at surfing, and that was the start. We were hooked.
The Wessex Surf Club really started from that day that we came from the water polo match that was cancelled, because we got to know all the people, and within not that long, was it?
No.
Someone said, "Oh, the council started rioting, saying that there was danger and there was all this, that, and the other, with the swimmers and the surfers mixed up together by Boscombe Pier." So I think it was Tony Bill said we ought to form some sort of club so we've got a voice against the council. Otherwise he could see that we were going to sort of lose out by it, with not being able to surf. We were going to try and ban it in the early days. I mean, that's the way things were then.
I grew up obviously in the war years, and took up surfing at about the age of 23, 24, and enjoyed it. I became involved with the Wessex Surf Club. There were several surfers about, quite a lot out meeting out there, and there seemed to be absolutely no organisation. Reg Prithock of Calypso Sports at the time thought that it would be a good idea if we could formalise things, particularly so that we could represent surfing to the local council and provide, hopefully, facilities eventually and enjoyment for the various people who we hope would become members.
I became involved with the Wessex Surf Club by surfing at Boscombe Pier in the very, very early days. I learnt to surf at Boscombe Pier, and there was a collection of an older group of surfers, and obviously you went out there and surfed with them, and they informed me and told me about the Wessex Surf Club and encouraged me to join.
I learnt the Wessex Surf Club through a guy called Brian Woods, who introduced me into surfing about 66, 67, and I blame him for it.
I know that Ken Whalen went to the original meeting, which was held at Tony Beale's house in Sandbanks, the formation, the formal meeting of the first inaugural Wessex Surf Club.
Yeah, we've interviewed Tony.
You have.
Yeah.
His wife was hot.
Yes,
that's why we used to. He was a useless surfer, but
I got introduced to surfing by sheer luck, and that took me down to Cornwall by a person who, I'm in the flooring business, and the person who I was working with, he had a girlfriend, and they split up, and she went down to Sennan Cove, of all places, near Land's End, because she had a relation down on the farm. Tried to retrieve his girlfriend back. She was on the farm, and we lived in the barn, because they knew him. Anyway, nothing happened. Ended up on Sennan Beach, and we sit on the beach thinking, what's going on here? And this bloke brought a surfboard down, didn't even know what a surfboard was. I thought it was an ironing board. And after it all finished, this fella paddled out and jumped on the surfboard, turned it round and came in. I couldn't believe it. And we got talking to him. He said, have a go. And couldn't believe it. And it was surfing. That was the first touch of surfing in 1967.
But you'd have been the first to be in the club before me, Brian, anyway, so to speak.
Well, it was, we used to come down to Boscombe Pier here surfing, and it started off, I think the reason why we formed the club is because nobody used to come down to Boscombe at all. It used to be a dead place, especially in the winter, nobody would come down here. Then Bournemouth Corporation decided to put yellow lines down there or something like that. They stopped, we couldn't park down there. And they didn't want us surfing down there because they said it was dangerous, which was a bit ridiculous because anything is dangerous. No matter what sport you do, it's dangerous. But they thought it was serious. And then it was Tony Bill. He sort of just talking to us actually, we all used to meet down there, and said, what about forming a club? We said, what a good idea.
I came from Lyon Solent, and my job took me from Southampton to Poole, so therefore with a board on the roof you naturally look down to Bournemouth. I became the Wessex when I came down here because I was working down here as a rep, and I happened to come down to Bournemouth Pier and there were some guys out surfing. So naturally I waited until they came in and had a chat with them and found out that they were about to form a club.
50 years ago, the first meeting, the first formal meeting, because I gather that there were variants on the Wessex Surf Club, more of an informal nature before that, was held in my house, and but it was Reg Prithock who really pulled the whole arrangement for that. And he knew who most of the surfers were, and one or two of the other original members are still about. Jeff McGratty, people who were also not in the Wessex Surf Club. Some of them did come to the meeting and decided that it wasn't going to work.
Wessex Surf Club was formed in case the Bournemouth Corporation wanted to fight the case where we couldn't surf down here. We had a club that was going to be behind all the surfers. That's the main reason that we'd actually formed the club. And of course it grew from there.
Surf scene like in the mid-70s, the surf club. It was a lot of good blokes really. It was good fun. You knew everybody. It was a time when there was a lot of fun and not too much seriousness, and everybody sort of knew everybody else. Yeah, it was really good.
In those days, they had surf clubs, surf club meets in different hotels and that, but it was the comradeship, and you got on with people, and you used to have parties. And then you used to have people like yourself coming down taking pictures and that, and the amount of mates you met, and it was a massive club, and I hate to say it now, the waves are much better in those days, and it was parties, even though I didn't used to drink and stuff like that, but it was like, Wessex Surf Club used to be once a month, and it was comradeship, and all of a sudden, just today, I met somebody down there I couldn't recognise. They said, "Oh, you must know Dave Sturgis because in the same field business as what I am."
And I got associated with the Wessex Surf Club probably around 1971, maybe 72. We moved to Bournemouth in 1970, and that's when I first started surfing. And not long after, you became aware of some of the older guys and more experienced, very knowledgeable. And they were good guys. They helped you and guided you with what you were trying to do with the surfing. I knew nothing of surfing. The first surf I ever had was on the other side of the pier on October the 7th, 1970. I remember the date vividly because it was my birthday. And I got a brand new board on that day. I'd already spent most of that summer having a little bit of a play at surfing, but I got the board on my birthday. Promptly went down the beach, paddled out. I had no wax on the board. I didn't even understand you had to have wax on the board. And as soon as I jumped on one side, I went off the other, So complete schoolboy error, but there was nobody really to ask. And as I was out there that first day, one of the elders, it turns out one of the Wessex Surf Club committee, said, you really want to get some wax on that board. And they were just good guys, and that's when I first became aware of the Wessex Surf Club.
The Wessex Surf Club in the early 60s, mid-60s, right through the 60s, for me really was just getting involved in competition. We didn't really have any social events, but as it was the group of people I surfed with were all members of the Wessex Surf Club, it was like we were the members of it, and we sort of congregated at Boscombe Pier. We used to go to the Neptune bars, drink heavily, have a great time, and there used to be bands there.
Yeah.
And so that became the sort of focal point of the Wessex Surf Club as such, although there was no focal point for it. So everyone who was involved in the Wessex Surf Club would at some stage be at the Neptune. Boscombe being so easy accessible in those days, with a large car park, you could drive right down to the pier. Very much the scene was Boscombe Pier. No one surfed at Bournemouth, and because Boscombe Pier had before the pier was broken down, it had a proper sized pier, so we used to have great waves there. And generally that was the congregation. It was a kind of a meeting point of all the surfers being Boscombe, and that was the Wessex Surf. Even though I was a sort of a junior member of the club, and we used to have meetings at various places. Where was the pub in Poole that they used to have the meeting? Paul Eales's pub.
Oh, I can't remember.
We used to have Paul Eales, who was one of the original members of the group. He owned a pub, and we had a big room there, and we used to have meetings there. So that would have been with the whole committee. But that was it was kind of separate from the kind of collective that we had at Boscombe.
My involvement with the Wessex Surf Club predates the time I moved here, and this is because there was a magazine, excellent little magazine called Tube News, that was running for around 12 years. It was the longest running British magazine, and I was really strong supporter. It was very grounded. It wasn't too much looking at all the international stars, and I really liked the way it was written and all the local interest. And I used to contribute a lot, stories, articles, photographs. Occasionally there were photographs of me. And so I had quite a strong connection, certainly with the editor Roger Castle, before I moved here in 1989.
At that time the boards were 10 foot long and they were about 35 to 40 pounds weight, and there were no leashes, so therefore if you lost your board out there it would come in sideways and wipe everybody out, and that of course was dangerous. So it wasn't until the board sort of came down to more or less 7.5 foot that somebody decided that it would be a good idea to have a piece of string tied to the leg, and it sort of went on from there.
And then of course we were always travelling down to Woolacombe or Croyd Bay of a weekend. So many members of the club, it was almost our second home, and you'd arrive at Woolacombe or Croyd and half the club would be there. And of course, I won't say proper surf, but bigger surf than we were used to here.
Held the occasional outing to Woolacombe. One of the members had access to an old bus, which we went to Woolacombe one weekend, and I think we got as far as about Yeovil, and everyone had to get out while he took it up the hill and then got in again because the engine was overheating. But I think it was overloaded as well. People were jammed up tight with surfboards in between them in the aisle or the centre of the coach. But that must have been, I would say, around about 1973 then.
Well, everyone was involved. We used to skateboard down at the pier. We used to hang around down at the pier when we could still park there. And right from the day dot, I used to cycle down with my surfboard under my arm, and we all used to hang around the pier, whether there was surf or not, playing football and skateboarding. And it was just one big sort of society. And we used to, when we went away, we usually went away en masse. The older guys used to take me in their vans when I was still sort of 14, leave me outside the pub when I went and get shit-faced in Croyd, and mainly it was Woolacombe in those days. But I used to have to sit outside in the van because I wasn't allowed in the pub, but I'd do anything to go surfing. So that's the way we did.
Surfing in those days was so small. It's nothing like what it is now. Obviously when you went to North Devon and you saw someone with a surfboard coming the opposite way, you would stop and talk to them and say, okay, where have you been? What you know, and have a chat. And they say, well, have you tried Putsborough? Have you been round the corner to such and such a place? You go, no, gone off you go. It was very much that sharing experience of surfers, which now obviously you don't kind of get. You know, you see surfers, you try and avoid them, but in those days you actively went to look for them.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner, winner, bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner, winner, bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner, winner, bird, bird. The bird's a winner, winner, bird, 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 bird, bird. The bird's a winner, winner, don't you know? About the bird. Well, everybody's talking about the bird, a winner, bird, bird. The bird's a winner, winner, bird.
We were the old ones, all the youngsters are coming. We were old, we were, you know, I suppose we were 30, 40, you know, coming up to 40 years old, and all the youngsters are coming along with these tiny boards. Of course, we still had these huge, great big boards, and they used to hate us, because we would pick the wave up.
Yes, we did.
About 30 foot further out, and we used to hammer on into these huge, great boards, you know, and all these youngsters used to go,
That's, you know, we had these boards, for 3 years. Then the first revolution came in, the McTavish revolution of the shorter board. So we all went down to shorter boards. Some people chopped their pop-outs off, they cut the nose off. Yeah. Some people bought their boards, as I did. So I went down to an 8'6" Chris Jones model, Bilbo Custom. And that, you know, in those days was radical, 8'6". Steve Brown went to an 8'2" Keith Paul Tiki model. Steve Reeves, he had a shorter board made. We all went down in and around the 8 foot mark, but that was the turning point from the longboard era to the progressive shortboard era.
Well, the board point of view and sizes, I think the first boards I had were in the 9'6", 9'9" sort of type of length. That was in 69, 70.
Single fins again, I presume.
Single fin. And then the era of the 70s became the shortboard revolution. The twin fins came. Made a twin fin from a kit from Tiki for £7, and that was in 71, I think. And then went back to the slightly longer single fins, 6'6", 6'9", pintails. And then gradually, seeing the light, moved back to longboards where you get more waves on a slower south coast wave, and you're able to get a longer ride, and especially the older you get, bad backs, easier get up, and a different style of surfing altogether, really.
And for many years I was solely a longboarder, and I think I got to a reasonable standard at that particular log, even entering a few competitions like the British Championships and so
on. I did start I went into partnership with Stuart Affleck, who used to live at Eyford, and we opened a surf shop, and that was the first surf shop, I think, in true surf shop, as opposed to Reggie's place in Parkston. And that was in Christchurch Road in Boscombe, and we ran that for a while, and that was 1970, I suppose. Did that 70, 71, and it was there the first time I met Guy Penwarden, because coming in the shop one day, his mum came in with him and his brother, and they were kids really, and they spent some money, which was nice. And I've sort of kept in touch with Guy ever since. And I've always been interested in his surf career, because at one time we actually went as the English team to California, and I went as a judge, and he of course was one of the members of the team. So yeah, I've always interested in Guy.
Surfing was banned in the 70s down here. 100 yards each side of the pier, you couldn't surf. It was illegal to surf in the summer months, unless you had a board under a certain length, which was about 4 foot, which was like, you know, impossible to stand on. So totally anti-surfing down here in the 70s, but the sport was centred down here. In the 80s, I suppose, moving into that was really, for me, was a competitive era, late 70s, early 80s. And you'd have to throw in there the first time that you're taking the Kimmeridge, just going back a ways, because rites of passage, you know, you go out and you surf the shore break, you then progress to out the back, you know, at the back of this pier here, older boys governing what's happening, you know, you can take this, you can't take that wave, you know, keeping it cool. And then ultimately those same guys saying, you know, you're getting on at surfing, you should really go and try Kimmeridge. And obviously the first time I'm taken out to Kimmeridge was a mind-blowing experience. It was 6 foot class, and instead of surfing over nice, comfortable, soft sand, you're surfing over a hard reef.
As we got older, we lost
recently.
interest in it. We didn't go to the dances. We had the dance back there in the Neptune, but then I think we were old and the youngsters started taking over. And you couldn't compete against them anyway. They were Brown, was it? Some of the youngsters. They were brilliant.
Daryl and
yeah.
The Tones brothers, or Toons if you like, the funeral directors.
That's all, yeah.
They used to turn up and check the surf out in the hearse.
82, yeah.
My era, which I think is still now, hopefully, but certainly back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was a tight-knit community, really. There was probably less surfers, but then just about everybody was involved with the surf club in those days. You know, you knew everybody in the water, and you know, quite often the lineups wouldn't be busy, but if they were, you know, there wasn't really many run-ins or anything like that. You know, it was always a sort of friendly, respectful sort of atmosphere. You know, and free for all. You know, I think the first basic rule is to not drop in, you know, and show respect to local surfers, you know. Yeah, so it's changed a bit.
The surf club and the surf scene in my era there wasn't that many people doing it. You certainly didn't see any female surfers at all, and it's been really nice to see over the years that females have become involved with surfing as well. There was only a small handful of surfers. You could easily be surfing at Bournemouth or Boscombe Pier with sort of 5 or 6 people out. On a crowded day, which would be at the weekend, there would be no more than 20 people out. That would be the very maximum.
When I was involved, I really only brought to the surf club, and I tried doing some filming. That film disappeared years ago. I tried to formalise the thing, but possibly rather too much for the surfers who weren't used to that sort of thing. So when we had meetings, there were proper minutes and stuff like that. I represented the surf club with correspondence to the local council once I'd become secretary, and that worked because they couldn't exactly ignore me. My uncle Frank, he was on the council at the time and was mayor a part of the time, which made it rather hard for the council to ignore me. They were more concerned really with skateboarders, having recognised early that the surfing scene was an enhancement as far as tourism was concerned.
I think there was a certain sort of togetherness and cohesion. If there were problems, things like, fishermen casting lines into the surface or things like that. We could work together on these things.
Became involved because really wanted to learn more about surfing. When I first started, I obviously knew nothing. Found out there was a surf club locally, surf club evenings at Douglas Towers Hotel. Went along there, met a friendly bunch of guys and girls, and went along from there. Learned quite a bit, but eventually got involved in the committee, if I remember rightly. I think organising club nights, entertainment, and eventually for my sins was made chairman for a year, but I wasn't re-elected again, and I can quite understand why.
Yeah, the venue's changed quite a bit. We've started at, I think the very first one I went to was at, I've got a feeling it was at Douglas Towers or Douglas Hotel, and that was many years ago. But it's been run by all loads of different people, and it's always been a great club to be part of. And I just think it should be like people be made more aware, or people should be made more aware of what the club's for and what it's about. And
my involvement with Wessex Surf Club was from approximately the end of 1979 until perhaps the 1993. I should think that's about covered it. So it was about a 14-year span. Well, I became involved because my sons were interested in surfing. First of all, my wife Thelma, who was eventually to become secretary, took my eldest son Nick along to a meeting, and I joined in after a bit, and so from sort of 79 onwards we became involved, and the two or three people who were running the club, but in particular Peter Brooks, who was the chairman, and Ben Liddell, who was an artist, became close friends of mine. So we all became involved round about the very early 80s.
Was I involved with the Wessex Surf Club? Well, really from 1989 when I first started working in the surf shop, and basically I've helped to run contests, train groms, get bodyboarding introduced to the Wessex Surf Club titles list. My involvement basically has always been on a sort of sideline basis, involving prize givings and sponsorship of events, local surfers, and basically making sure that the whole surfing community is represented by the club.
When I was about 14, 15, me and a few of the younger grommies used to bodyboard, and we used to try and get down to the surf club as much as you could. The surf club was like kind of like the hub of the area at the time, so it was they had all the best parties and always had got the most loosest and stuff like that, and it was really good crack. We were only probably maybe between 14 and 16 at the time, and we used to go to the old rowing club at the parties there, and then slowly, even though we weren't members then, we used to go to the parties and then eventually integrated into the club eventually, so it was good.
My involvement with the Wessex Surf Club was really through surfing at Boscombe Pier a lot of the time, because that's where I learnt to surf. And there was a few of the older guys who were involved with the Wessex Surf Club, and obviously went to their meetings quite a lot, like Guy Penwarden and Steve Linton and Eddie the Fish, and they tell me when the meets were and got me involved, obviously, so I'd learn who the other locals were as well through going to the Wessex, and yeah, just build up my local knowledge and get friendly with the local surf scene, really.
It came about really for me by accident, I suppose. At the time, I'm a local guy, born and bred, so I'm particularly passionate about the area anyway. You know, I was born in Boscombe Hospital and just the general area. And at the time there were some things going on down on the beachfront that I wasn't happy about. So long story short, I basically got involved with the council. Got better access to a beachfront car park, and during that period, that was when I was a member when the club relaunched, as I said earlier, and yeah, through my campaigning to get better access to this particular beachfront car park, people then started suggesting to me, well, you know, why don't you put yourself forward maybe as the chairman, which I was quite flattered about at the time, but equally so I thought, well, you know, it's not for me to say, and I don't really think I should be, you know, I mean, I don't know enough people, etc. But it was particularly Guy Penwarden actually was one of the key persons that was pushing me to get involved, and so that was really how I first started becoming involved.
I came involved with the surf club because obviously living in Bournemouth anyway, I enjoy surfing. I met a lot of people through surfing, met a lot of fine people and friends that I've kept in contact with and still see on a regular basis now. I just thought, well, all my friends are kind of like getting into it, we're all getting into the surf club, and it was going really well as well. We enjoyed it, it was a good atmosphere, a good vibe, everyone was out in the water enjoying themselves as well, and enjoying ourselves socially as well. So I kind of put my sort of name forward to be social secretary, and I don't think I did too bad a job. I didn't get sacked or anything like that, so I think it wasn't too bad.
But again, one of the reasons for joining the club was to hopefully bring sort of different factions together. So we did introduce bodyboarders to the club, longboarders and shortboarders mixed, and it definitely seemed like there was less localism going on when you were part of the surf club.
Well, I think it's fair to say that in the sort of like early to mid 90s there was a massive boost in popularity for surfing. And as such, the surf club went from a small elite band to what really it still is today, which is a very strong, large group of surfers spanning a whole range of disciplines within the surfing world.
An interesting thing is this book by Carl Thompson. I was given this about 3 years ago. It's a very rare book, actually, and it's covers all the surfing spots in the British Isles, pictures of them, including here in Boscombe Pier and Kimmeridge. In the back of it, there is also how to form and run a surf club. And it's the Wessex Surf Club that they use as a pattern.
Another memorable moment, not to do with the club, but we were all down there and we were out surfing, and suddenly we looked in and there was like a hotel on the, well, it's still there now, but all renewed, out on the cliffs, and saw this smoke coming out, and there was quite a strong wind blowing offshore, and the whole hotel went up in flames, and we were out there surfboards, weren't we? Watching it all happen, and then the fire brigade, of course the fire brigade down there, it took a long time to get there because of all the little narrow roads, and by the time we got there it was so much alight, it was just rebuilt, the place was ruined. That was a memorable one.
It was actually, yeah. I only ever got one decent ride in my life on a Malibu board, And that was at Kimmeridge, and the most thrilling thing about it was the fact that in the curve of the wave, you could see all the seaweed being sucked up, and I saw a fish swimming away from me. And that was the most thrilling ride of my life, but that was only about 3 foot.
Other memories of what the surf club did, there were a few competitions organised with Ordnance Survey Surf Club and the Isle of Wight Surf Club, mainly through Bob Groves helping out, because he came from the Solent area and he knew quite a few people up there. So I was never involved with those outings. The occasional one out at Kimmeridge too, which was usually in high winds and heavy rain, judges standing miserably on the shore trying to organise people, but run by Wessex.
And Cyril, we all backed out because it was too rough out there. I remember Cyril going, "Come on, you can go out of it." I'm not going out there. Cyril got really uptight about that. And I can remember also one of the competitions was going over the broad bench. Is it called broad bench?
Broad bench, yes.
You had to paddle all the way over there, and then you had to paddle back as well.
That was for the hardy people.
Oh yeah, well, Cyril was toughy, wasn't he?
So we all started on pop-outs. I started on a Bilbo pop-out, 10 foot.
Because you had money.
No, my parents had money.
Yeah,
they bought it for me, Michael, because they loved me. Yeah. I'm the only child, don't forget. So I had a Bilbo pop-out, and then I progressed to a Bilbo custom. I went from 10 foot to 10 foot 4 in the custom. It was a beautiful board, beautiful board.
These single fins?
Single fins, yeah. Polypropylene fins in those days, because they were still experimenting with fins. And the one thing that you could relied on in Boscombe with your old boards with no leashes was the fact that old groin. There used to be a groin towards the pier, and it was a big, old, gnarly groin. The good thing about it is it retained the sand in between the pier and that groin, so you got some really good sandbanks building up. But the bad sign was, because you had these gnarly bits at the end and you had no leash, you fell off and you were in, panic stations because that board is going towards that groin and you're swimming like a crab. And so many came to grief on there, maimed and destroyed, because it was just, one of those terrible things.
One of the most life-changing experiences for me is moving up to Kimmeridge. And Kimmeridge, as a lot of people know, and people maybe watching this film may not know, it's probably one of the best rideable waves in the UK. And I suppose going from the 70s into the 80s was the mastery of the spot known as Broad Bench, which is the heaviest, probably the heaviest South Coast wave going.
Yeah, I'm glad the Wessex Surf Club, certainly gave insights into everybody who joined. When somebody comes and watched their, in those days, video films and that, they got stoked and thinking, you know what, I can understand where the laid-back California attitude is, especially the music and all the rest of it. And everybody wanted to see that, and it took people out of their zone to different parts of the world. It certainly took me.
In terms of highlights, there's one scary incident that happened to me about 20 years ago. This was before the internet, of course. I used to pride myself on being able to forecast the surf pretty well, and I used to get to Kimmeridge often at the crack of dawn when the surf had come up overnight and be on my own. And on one of those mornings I was surfing at Broad Bench, waves were about double overhead. And as it was approaching 9 o'clock, there was a guy from the army waving on the headland, so I was looking to get a good wave in, but the next thing, a large launch was coming in towards me, and it's probably about a 50-foot launch. And I thought they were going to stay offshore and just warn me, but they came in to try to grab me. And as they did so, perhaps the biggest set of the day loomed up, and it looked like this launch was going to get caught by the wave and get beached onto the reef and grind me into the reef. And that was so scary. I managed to paddle out the way onto the shoulder pretty darn quick, and they slammed the launch into reverse really sharply and managed to back off over the wave. Only just, I should say, as well. That was scary. I think it scared them, but it really scared me.
The whole surfing time has been a highlight, really. I feel lucky to have done it. People can search all their lives for something to do, and I feel if you find something that lights your fire and gives you a buzz all the time, you've been lucky in your life. So I'm not going to say about memorable moments, because really every time you put on a wetsuit and rub some wax in a surfboard, it's a time, isn't it?
Well, a memorable highlight while I was with the surf club, well, one that my boys always talk about, is something we call White Feathers Day, which was, I can't really remember what date it was, but it would have certainly been a winter swell, maybe December, January, and a huge swell came across the bay here and swept into Bournemouth Pier. That was huge, clean and huge, probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 foot clean swell. It was raking Bournemouth Pier, the lower deck, from end to end. And no way of getting out. But we said, right, we'll go down, run out on the end, jump in, and have the ride of our life in. So, kitted up, out we went, and in went the boys, and I thought, blow this, going to drown in there. So I didn't go in. They did. It was forever known as White Feathers Day. That's the biggest swell I've ever seen here. I teased about it for years. I'm glad I didn't go in anyway.
I started off on the first boards I ever saw. My uncles used to make wooden boards. My uncle and my dad made wooden surfboards, and it was a carry-on from really sort of. They were scuba diving and stuff like that, and it was just a follow-on. My uncle played border polo for the police, and once they saw surfboards, my dad copied them. My dad used to work at British Aircraft Corporation, and so he took lots of foam from there and started experimenting, trying to make foam boards in the back garden, and we used to make wetsuits. My mum used to make patterns for wetsuits, and we used to buy rubber from the States and spend all our evenings in the winter making wetsuits, which rapidly fell apart.
Memorable moments in the history of Wessex Surf Club. Several spring to mind, but one in particular is their Headworks Pro down here at Southbourne in 2003. And most people know that it's a really heavy shore break down at Southbourne compared to the longer waves at the piers. And I managed to pick a really windy, wavy weekend for the contest. And we had an absolute legend in our midst in Eric Davies, and British longboard champion, British veterans champion, fantastic skier. And he managed to face plant the beach in the shore break and broke his neck. And unbelievably, the ambulance came down, took him away. He discharged himself from hospital the next day, spent 2 weeks lying down at home, and went skiing about 2 weeks later. And it was me who had to go back to his house and tell his wife that he'd broken his neck in my surfing contest. So,
most memorable highlights, or possibly lowlights, big days trying to surf broad bench. One particular day was a March day. I can't remember what year it was. I can't remember again what year it was, but it was a particularly foggy day, and the guys turned up in the car park. No wind at all, so you could hear the surf booming, and we thought, "Oh, it's going to be interesting today." Little did we know how big it was, and it was quite surprising and how terrifying it was out there that day. And I actually failed to catch a wave and got swept through the peak. I managed to survive to tell the tale, but that was one particularly low light or highlight, and that was interesting day.
But yeah, and I also remember like the end of the pier parties. I think there's a fight between Cycrass and Eddie, and that was quite funny. Everyone went out and watched it. It was good fun. I remember Skippy doing his knee, and his leg was hanging out the wrong way around, and everyone's still dancing and stuff like that. It's really good times, and I love the every time you did the South Coast, you'd get your South Coast t-shirts, and It was quite cool. It's everyone who did the event always got a T-shirt, or you get the T-shirt afterwards. So it just is. It's quite cool, and it's just always a one-off kind for that one event. I think it was. So it's quite a good laugh.
I mean, one of my most memorable sort of moments in surfing with the guys was at the British Interclub Championships. I believe it was the mid to late 90s, and some of the old guys from the Wessex got a group of us together, most of us being Boscombe surfers at the time. So we went down, entered the British Interclub Championships down in Cornwall under the name of the Boscombe Hell team, which made all the other teams laugh a bit. Made the mistake of getting a bit too drunk on the night that we got down there, the night before the contest. So of course, as the contest has started the next day, people are missing their heats. Some people are paddling in the wrong direction. You know, there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on. But somehow we managed to come third, which is a bit bizarre because there was 11 teams entered, but we did have a couple of elite surfers back in those days.
One of the highlights I can remember about being a member of the Wessex Surf Club, and in fact being contest secretary, was that I thought it would be very important that the Wessex should do a few contests, and one of the competitions that I thought was quite important was the British Interclub Surf Championships, and they would take place in Willicombe. So we took teams down, certainly in 2001, 2002, 2003, possibly 2004. Don't know how long it continued, but in 2002 the Wessex A team came third in the Interclub Championships, which was the best ever result.
I think memorable experience as well. I went away in 1997, back in 97. I went away with about 12, I think it must be 12 of us boys. We all went away. We went to France. The surf forecast was not too good, so we all trundled low over there, got over there, and we were greeted by 6 foot perfection for 2 weeks solid. It was unbelievable. We were all sleeping in tents. There was Joe Hart, Kurt Baker, Nick Murillo, Terry Crump, Mark Malkin, Kurt Baker. The list is endless. There was loads of us trying to remember. Right, sorry?
Cuddly Toy.
Cuddly Toy, yeah, dishwasher. And so we went away. We had an amazing time. Mark Malkin took a big Winnebago down there, camper van. We were all sat around in this French campsite watching the Far Show on DVD one night as well. And Mark come running out of his Winnebago. Your van's on fire. And Mark, being a bit of a prankster that he is, yeah, well, whatever, Malky. Anyway, looked in, and there it was. His Cala gas bottle was actually on fire there. So obviously his true friends did, not wanting his van to blow up. We scarpered and hid behind our tents, and he had to put it out himself.
I think for me, the memories of the Wessex Surf Club was both my friend and Clyde and myself. We're only 13 years old, quite immature. Well, I guess 13 you're allowed to be, but it was mixed. It was just being part of a really good organisation, and just the banter that was involved with surfing and talking about surf, and probably some of the highlights for us. It wasn't really about the surfing. It was about perhaps the Christmas do, which was always fancy dress, and it was a good excuse for the surfers to let their hair down and have a few too many drinks, and for us it was a good excuse to get a water pistol and squirt them, and I've just got great memories of that.
My best memories from certainly being in the club and surfing locally was some of the contests we used to go to, either locally or down the West Country. There'd always be somebody that had a van, and they're quite happy to fill them up with the young kids, like as I used to be, like myself. And I used to love those sort of weekends away. And sometimes it'd be middle of winter, wetsuits weren't that good, but you'd find a way to get out there and
First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for the Wessex Surf Club for choosing me to be in their video. It's so nice to be considered as a representative for the club. I mean, it was so important for me growing up in Bournemouth to have constant supply of fun surfers and a solid crew to go surfing with. I don't think without the Wessex Surf Club and all the members I would anywhere be as close to the surfer I am today. So it's brilliant. I mean, the Wessex Surf Club was a key thing in my life from a young age. When I was probably 12 or 13, I was at school and I was just frothing to go to the beach afterwards and be with all the guys who were older than me, which I all looked up to, likes of Aaron Strong and Terry Crump, who were also members of the club. Without those guys and the club basis, I wouldn't have that figure to look for as a surfer. So having good locals was excellent too. Also, just the social aspect. I think Bournemouth has got a really strong social surf scene, and that was kind of one of the great things about growing up there. Always had good friends to go surf with.
I think the club scene is quite important really, because to start with you've got a centre point for people to meet with other people. There's the social thing. There's youngsters coming into it all the time, and therefore it's a good way of teaching them the correct way to surf, what with wave pickup and all the usual things that can be a problem. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing for clubs to be organised, and the Wessex Club have done their part in that.
But I think the influence indirectly on the council was quite a lot. I mean, while I was there, we ran the English Championships at Bournemouth. We ran the South Coast here many times, and that all but winter trade in, I think we were very successful. It was only when big business stepped in that I felt I was out of my depth. I wasn't in the big business. So that's when my turn came to an end.
Well, obviously looking out over the front here now, you know, about, I don't know how young they start now, but certainly 10 years and upwards.
Well,
the most difficult section, I would say, are the older teenagers and young 20s who want to be their own renegades and go off on their own, but getting them to gel as a community and look out for each other really, and form a little groups and be pally in the water. There are those out there, people get a bit upset, you know, if you make a mistake and get in the way, but part of life making mistakes, I'm afraid. But generally looking out for each other.
Yeah, I think the Wessex Surf Club adds value to the local surf community with its presence of basically showing that we have got a local club that's supporting everyone, that's showing them the do's and don'ts, you know, when you're out in the water, you know, basic things like that, and also, you know, bringing people together so they can get to know each other and make the lineup a lot safer while everyone is out in the water as well.
I think over the years it's brought people together in surfing, but we need more of that. I think, you know, there's been lots of events, there's been lots of trips and stuff that people can get involved in, and it's brought the surfing community closer together for sure. And I think we need more of that. As there's more people getting in the water, I think we need more of a community-based spirit, and the club is the ideal place for that, really.
I thought that for the community, I mean, it is really good because it's something that's a sport that needs to be developed all the time. People really enjoy it, and it keeps people fit. So any sport that keeps people fit isn't really an asset to the community. And I would think there's hardly anything more to keep fit in surfing.
Oh, the value added to the community by the surf club is enormous. I mean, I think surfing as it is really, most people do it for themselves, and it's a solitary sport. And of course there's a lot of camaraderie in the water as well, but there's a lot of competition too. So best wave comes through, everybody wants it. Well, that's great in the water, but actually out of the water you still need to be mates as well. You need to look after each other. One of the other things as well is to make sure that the young people coming into surfing, you know, have the right attitude, that they're taught the rules and, you know, how to treat other people. and also that carries on through generations. So the young people of today are the ones who next generation should be teaching their children or their children's friends how to surf and how to show respect in the water.
I think the Wessex Surf Club adds a lot to the local surfing community. It's great to have social events and movies and chats and bands, and you know, it's what everybody wants to be a part of. You know, I think they should be a part of it if they're not involved. It just brings the community together again, and so we can know, you know, most of the people out in the water. Of course, we're going to get a few travelling surfers coming by. You know, we're all travelling surfers ourselves when we go to visit other surf spots too. But I think it's really important to have the Wessex Surf Club, you know, getting as many people locally that are involved in surfing involved in the club.
I think surfing can be a very individualistic sport. Like, it would be so easy in some ways just to sort of turn up somewhere by yourself and sort of wish all the other people weren't there taking your waves and go away and not talk to anyone else, but that would be a real shame. So I think it's good, because if everyone surfed in a sort of a very selfish way like that, it would be a horrible atmosphere to be in the water. You'd get a lot of sort of arguments and fights and things, and it's not really good for anyone. So I think it's important to have sort of a sense of community and appreciation for the other people that you're surfing with, and also for sort of the people who've been before you. Like, if you turn up at the surfing spot and you don't really know anything about it, you might not appreciate that people have been surfing there for a long time. I think it sort of breeds respect for other people.
I think the surf clubs are good for the community. I mean, it kind of brings them, they bring people together a little bit more, make social events, they making push points, which is kind of important for surfers anyway. And I mean, if you want to go surfing, you've got someone else to go with and stuff like that. If you're new to the sport, you can get involved with it, and it's a good body to get involved with. We can help organise contests, like we can do a lot of stuff, and I mean the parties are pretty good fun as well.
Surf clubs are for some people and less so for other sort of people. I think where the club adds value is providing a voice for the community if it wants it as a voice on matters that affect everybody. So that could be things like the wind farm, which is sort of planned out near the Isle of Wight. It could be something even more sort of localised about maybe some issues with like fishermen on Boscombe or Bournemouth sort of piers. So as a club, I don't think we ever turn around and would take up these issues without a mandate from local surfers.
And I think what's lovely with the surf community is that we all go away. There's quite a few now who live abroad, overseas, but they always come back to visit. And there's a lot of people here, if you think collectively for all the surfers, they've travelled the whole of the world, you know, spread right across it. And I think surfers tend to have an open mind on, you know, in general on life, and it's about making friends. It's about, you don't want to paddle out and have punch-ups or anything like that. You want to paddle out, make friends, chat, as I do sometimes and forget to catch waves, but get out there, just enjoy it.
Especially over the last 20 years, from what I understand about the surf in general around the UK and the world, it's absolutely exploded. You know, it's gone from what the club used to be like 50 years ago. It's gone from being a real tight, close-knit, almost what do they call it? A subculture, sort of an underground culture, if you like. It's become a lot more mainstream, for good and bad, you know. But that's the way it is, and for that reason, the community has got a lot bigger, a lot more diverse, a lot more spread out. And if anything, you know, some people say, is there really a need for a club now? Well,
from the club point of view, from modern days, I think Wessex is unique in as much that it's still going after 50 years. I mean, that is something. The South Coast Surf Club, as far as I know, doesn't exist anymore. I'm not sure about the Ordnance Survey in Southampton. I don't think there's a club there anymore. As a founding member, I'm very glad that the Surf Club in some form has kept going over all these years, and it's you know, it's a credit particularly to Reg for getting it together in the first place, and I know exactly how difficult it is to keep the thing going. Surfers are rather like sheep. Unless you've got a good guard dog, they tend to go off on their own devices.
I think the hardest thing for the club is actually finding someone to give up their time, or people to give up their time to actually run the club, because it's almost like a full-time job anyway, like, as any club is, you know. Any institution like this, it's not an easy thing to do, but finding people that are actually dedicated, have the knowledge and are prepared to give up their own time to do it, that is the main issue I see of the club. Luckily we've got a great chairman now.
And I think one of the positive things I sort of noticed is that where we tried to bring a bit of consistency to the sort of club, that we're seeing some more sort of positive, sort of long-term support for the club off the back of that.
I would hope the Wessex Surf Club keeps moving in the direction they're going, keep getting fresh blood in and stuff like that, and try and do some more kids events and stuff like that, try and get more competitions. I mean, it's hard work, I suppose, in these days to get everything done at one time, but it'd be brilliant to see them do one more big South Coast or a couple more big South Coast, host those a few times, do little training camps and stuff like that, or little trips here and there as well, whether it's just like a friendly thing up to Willicombe, or if we just, Wales, or even doing the river run down the River Severn, that'd be quite a laugh. Doing things like that's always good.
Really, the future of the surf club, especially for the youngsters, I hope it expands, brings some more sort of people together, and hopefully teaches a few people a bit more manners in the water, which has lacked in the last few years. And I think the contests that it brought were really good, mixed other clubs together, and made people realise that there was other people in the water with like-minded ideas, really.
I think there's two key reasons why this club has done well and other clubs have floundered. I think there were two key reasons, why clubs were formed in the old days. One was there weren't that many surfers, and I'm thinking particularly of when I joined the Pembrokeshire Surf Club. There were only about a dozen or so keen surfers in Pembrokeshire, and you all wanted to kind of join with like-minded people and go surfing together. Nowadays there's too many people. You want to try to find somewhere where there aren't other people. And of course the other issue is that people get together to watch surf films and really get stoked on that. Nowadays we're just spoiled with being able to see so many surf films. So I think where surf clubs relied on those two things to keep together, those attractions died pretty much. So you have to find new things if the surf club's to have a real purpose.
But it's coming back again. It's coming back more to, I think, it's coming back more to a bit more of a one love thing, if you like. It's coming back together more now, and that's that's a lot to do with the club. It's a sort of it's a starting point, and people are sort of coming back to it, and I think that's great. There's a lot of social stuff. I like that. Surfers have always been hard drinking, partying animals. They always have,
For the club's future, I hope that it goes on another 50 years. It's a bedrock part of the surfing community of Bournemouth and Boscombe, and they've had some fine characters, some fine men and women have passed through, gone on to other parts of the world and carried on. But on a whole, I wish the Wessex Surf Club another fab 50 years.
I mean, as it's developed, I would hope that it would keep on growing and become a bigger thing, and more members and more people taking up surfing. Again, it's all good for the community. In fact, I think surfing has put Boscombe on a map, really.
Yeah, what I'd like to see for the future of the Wessex Surf Club is more social functions happening. It'd be nice to see them getting local bands involved again as well, and seeing that happening. And it's you know, it'd just be great to see them having their organising little surf contests and things like that, and just to keep carrying on the way that they're going. It's all positive and good at the moment.
I would like to see the Wessex Surf Club continue as it is going. I don't see that you will ever get the club will ever get a really large membership because people are people. However, you're expanding a bit when you can, and you have all the difficulties that I know exist in other surf clubs. That situation is unlikely to change, and all I'd like to do is to wish the Wessex Surf Club a very good future.